everyone, and welcome back to SA Smart Chat 2023. I'm Natasha Wilkerson, co-chair of SA Smart, the Mayor's K-12 Smart City Challenge. And this year we're tackling transportation. So we're talking to several different experts, including one I have here today. Kammy Horne is the Senior Vice President of Planning and Development at VIA. She's a diverse background in the transportation industry, and I will let her talk about that. Kammy, welcome to SA Smart Chats. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Natasha, and hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today.
And we're excited to have you. And so I read a little bit of your background, but can you just give me a sense of what is your experience in this topic of transportation?
Sure. Well, I have a pretty diverse background in transportation, and I'll tell you that I never thought of this as a career, but here I am 25 plus years later, and I'm in transportation. I think I really got inspired with a professor that I had when I was at the University of Texas at Austin, getting my master's degree in planning. I got inspired about transportation because I honestly hadn't really thought about it too much before. I mean, if you think about it, transportation is what takes you everywhere. It's the lifeline. But I never really thought about having a career in it until I realized how integral it was and how important it was to have good transportation for people's lives. And so I think my first big job in transportation was with the Texas Department of Transportation. And that was super exciting because I was able to learn so much about how roads are planned when there's no roads, how roads are expanded, and how roads are so tied into our economy and how we live. And then, being out in the public and talking about plans and learning more about that. I was able to learn so much when I worked at the Texas Department of Transportation, or TxDOT as it's called. And then I had the opportunity to move to Washington, D.C., where I did a few things, but then I went into the federal government and I started working for the Federal Transit Administration. So after having this foundation of roads, then I started working for the federal government on transit and public transportation. And I really fell in love with it. I loved really learning how public transportation can help so many people, can take the burden off of our roadways by providing an option so that you can move more people faster in less vehicles. And so that's really, although I continued to work both on roads, I really kind of started thinking a lot more and working a lot more in that public transportation. And I was able to work in Washington, D.C. Then I moved to Utah and I worked on Salt Lake City's first commuter rail. So that was super fun because that was rail, and I really loved working out there. Then I moved to Phoenix and I worked with them, and you can Google all these places and their public transportation. And I worked on a lot of it with a lot of awesome people, buses, light rail, and then like the commuter rail. Then I moved up to Austin and did some stuff with Austin, and that continues to go. And I was doing a lot of work in the private sector at the time, but now I'm actually working again at an agency for VIA and working. San Antonio, as you probably know, is the 7th largest city in the US. We have an amazing network of buses, but we also have some very exciting plans. If you look up the Keep San Antonio Moving website, you can see all of the exciting things that we are doing in San Antonio. We're going to have our first bus rapid transit project that we're going to get federal funding for, and so many other exciting things. KeepSAMoving.com, and you can look through all of that. I'll say one other exciting tool that we have in our toolbox now, aside from our regular buses, we have something called Via Link, which is like Uber or Lyft for shared ride services in some of our areas of San Antonio. So take a look. it's all super exciting. And that's a quick snapshot of my background.
Yeah, and we'll definitely link everything you're mentioning in the show notes below the video, and then we give the students a resource guide. And so those are perfect to add it to kind of their toolkit. I'm curious, what was your degree in before you went into transportation? Because you said it kind of sparked at a college level. I guess that was a bachelor's degree you were getting.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother story, but if
Oh,
we have a few minutes, because I think I've always just been curious about things, but I got a degree in biology for my undergraduate degree. I grew up in
interesting.
El Paso, Texas, moved to Long Island to a small school, and did work out there. And then I actually worked in biology for a bit of time in the Virgin Islands. So
You've been all over.
all of that. So I didn't really start doing transportation until I went back for my master's degree.
Okay.
And you know, I think that's okay. I think it's okay to explore around and give it time to settle in and see what you really want to do. Um and that's what I did, and it's all worked out fine. So
I think that's great advice. We have a lot of high school teams that are in SA Smart, and those junior seniors are like, what do I want to do? Thinking they have to decide their entire career pathway. And it's kind of like, just pick something because your story is showing it. You kind of figure it out as you go. It sounds like you didn't go to college saying, I want to do transportation. It just happened in your kind of adventures of figuring it out.
absolutely. I'm so glad that you reemphasized that. I think it's just great to be open to new things. And the other piece of advice I would say is just never stop learning. I mean, I was so happy to be able to come to VIA as an actual in the agency and start learning things that I didn't know about before and later in my career. So yeah, I just I definitely wasn't that person that knew exactly what I was
No.
going to do.
Okay, so then let's talk about transportation. This is the
Sure.
topic for the students. What are you seeing as some of those critical issues that we're facing in San Antonio?
I'll say the first critical issue, and I talk about this a bit, and I've written about this a little bit too, is congestion. So between 2040 and 2050, the estimates are that we're going to grow by another million point five
Wow.
people. And I like to explain this by thinking, imagine the whole population of Austin just being dumped into San Antonio.
Wow, that's a good way to think of it. Yeah.
I was like, wow, like, so some people, say, well, I don't really, I could get there faster in my car. Yeah, right now you might be able to get places faster in a car. That might be okay. But there is going to be a point where our roads are very congested and there's no other way to widen the roads or do anything else. So I think congestion is something we have to always be a little bit ahead of. Now, I
Mm.
think that COVID brought some options for people that work in offices to sometimes be remote and take some of that pressure off, but there's always going to be the need for people to get from point A to point B. And the more people that are living here, the more that's going to be a challenge because there's only so much you can do. So I think thinking ahead and trying to build on options to move more people with less vehicles, that's really, really important. And I think the other challenge that we have too is sometimes people get distracted with like autonomous vehicles or Lyft and Uber. But if you think about those, like even autonomous vehicles, that still could be one person in one vehicle taking the same amount of space. So we never want to take our eye off the ball of a really good network, a network that is devoted to, which our bus rapid transit will have a lot of this, just spaces just for the public transportation so that it can get places without congestion of the regular traffic, which makes your travel a lot more reliable too, because I'm going to get in this bus and I know it's not going to have to interact with a lot of vehicles because it has its own roadway, and I know that I'll be able to get to point B by this time. So on a very serious note, I think it's important to think ahead, and I'm trying to think ahead for the next generation, and I'm very, very enthusiastic about having a better public transportation system. And I'll tell everyone out there too, about almost a year and a half ago, I gave up my own car. I gave up my own car so that I could experience mostly our own transit system, to see what that felt like, to see what challenges there are, and what I can do to make that better. And so I've been riding the bus now for I would say about 18 months now, almost on a daily basis. And it's given me a completely different perspective, and one that I try to bring to my job every day.
Wow, that's fascinating. And so what's been your experience not having a car? What are some of the challenges you're seeing in the transportation infrastructure we have right now?
I think one of the challenges that I see is being able to, we're not talking about VIA's funding, because if we
The whole other.
more funding, because I think one of the challenges is just having more frequency of our bus network, so that if you miss a bus, it's not another half an hour, or sometimes an hour for the next bus. That can be a real challenge, and I've seen that too. Like, I'll be getting ready and I'll just have to be like, oh gosh, I'll put my makeup on at work because I got to get on that bus. But so that can be a challenge. But I'm going to tell you a wonderful thing about riding the bus, and I thought about that today because I was actually out with our teams doing some work on the buses. What I love about it, though, is there's a sense of community that I feel when I'm on the bus. And when I start my day on the bus, I see people, and sometimes I see the same people every day, and sometimes I see new people, and there's just a real sense of community that I love. I love just feeling like, wow, I'm like with this small sort of family feeling before I get to work. I'm not just in my own space, and that's just been really rewarding. And working at VIA and then seeing all the different people that we serve on a daily basis, it's just a really wonderful day to start and end my day usually. So it's been great.
I love that. I hadn't even considered the idea of transportation as a way to build a sense of community.
Mhm.
That's really powerful. And so what are other ideas or potential solutions that students can think about as they tackle this Essay Smart challenge?
Well, I think in terms of solutions or ideas, what I love about the fact that there is this challenge and that students are taking this on is that I think all ideas are good ideas.
Hmm.
And so if you have an idea, don't feel like, oh, I have to be a transportation professional to share this
Right.
idea. Because I've seen so many ideas just take hold, and then things do better. And actually, I work with a person here at VIA who, there's this, that Uber and Lyft service that I talked about, our VIA Link service that you can look up. Yes, that had been started in some other areas in the country, but it was her idea and the way she built it that really brought that to San Antonio. And that's a great tool. It's a great tool to have where our buses don't really work as well, kind of in our outer areas, to have this. People can use it for the same cost as a bus fare, which is $1.30. So I just would say all ideas are good ideas, and keep sharing those ideas. Keep sharing those ideas through your whole life, because I think it's only through creativity that we can do better. And so, yeah, I would just emphasize that.
One last question. Do you have some advice on how students can just get started in maybe learning more about transportation and localizing, like looking at what are some local challenges in their community?
Well, it depends on how in depth you want to get. I would say that there's always public meetings. VIA has, public meetings
That's a
that
good
you
idea.
can go to if you see things that you're interested in. But I would also say, if you're really, really interested, maybe I'll say for me with public transportation, I mean, reach out to me. I have a team. I have a whole team of people. If there's something specific you want to learn about, or maybe you just want to learn to ride the bus, and that's okay too. Just give us a call, because we're happy to help and teach. So that's a way. And then, I mentioned the Department of Transportation. There's also that opportunity there. But building a network is really good. And you only have to start with one person. So I'll offer myself. If people want to learn more, we would definitely be so happy to sit down and talk about any topic. And in college too, sometimes we do offer for college internships. So that's a way to learn more once you get to that level as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your insight and advice. And I love this concept that for you to learn more about VIA, you gave up your car to really understand. So I'm like processing that, like maybe I should do that. But thank you again and your advice to students. I appreciate having you on.
Okay. Thank you, Natasha.
Bye-bye.
Bye.